Another thing I want us to see about Jesus' teaching ministry is the identity of his ministry was this. He taught without restraint. He taught without any obligations. This is why the people were astonished whenever he taught. He wasn't concerned about offending the people. Let me say that again. Many of us, I don't want to say something because I don't want to offend my denomination. I don't want to offend leadership. Many times we don't teach some certain stuff because we don't want to offend not only leadership. I'm just use those examples. We don't want to offend family. We don't want to offend friends. But that's not how Jesus taught. And that's why I said there was a difference between his teaching. This is why it's so important that we understand the identity of his teaching so that we'll learn that we need to teach like he taught. Again, he was not concerned about offending the people or what they might say. It says in Matthew 15, 12 through 14, I don't have all those written down, but I can just paraphrase what the scripture says. But it said that his disciples came to him and said, "Hey, Jesus, did you know the Pharisees were offended at what you said?" He said, "Man, they're to be the blind and let the blind lead the blind." I don't care what they thinking. Why is that important? I really want us to understand this is very important about his teaching. Because the Pharisees, the scribes, and the Sadducees were religious groups. They were religious sects during those times. And they had power, you all. Can I say that again? They really had power. They had the power to kick you out of the synagogue. And why is that so important? I really want us to understand this. Because synagogues were more than just churches. They were family. They were community. If you were kicked out of a synagogue, people shunned you. They did not talk to you. You were not able to buy and sell with people of your community. You were shunned. You were basically, people would silence you. And if you notice, that's why a lot of times, I'll give you all a quick example. When that young man who was blind from his birth, when the Pharisees asked his parents, not just his mom, but they said, "Is your son, was he born blind?" They said, "He's of age. Ask him." They were scared to even answer the Pharisees because they understood that they could kick them out of the synagogue. It's very important, you all. Jesus wouldn't even care. I don't care what they think. He wasn't even concerned of a lot of things that they said didn't agree with them. He argued. They argued with him. They debated with him. He didn't even care. He was not offended. He was not afraid of them. He was not intimidated by them. I'm just trying to show you all his ministry, why it was so effective. And if we can learn to have that power, we have that same power on the inside of us. Many of us don't use that power. We don't stir up that power. That's why he tells us in 2 Peter to stir up the gift of God that's on the inside of you. You got to stir up that gift. And I'm talking to myself because there's times when we want to be intimidated, but that's not how Christ taught. How many know we don't even realize the Pharisees, they had rulers over synagogues. There was a ruler, there was a person who was in charge over the synagogues. Who do you think put him in charge? The Pharisees. So if they put the ruler in charge, you know they had the ability to kick you out of the synagogue. And again, the synagogue was very important because it represented the community that they were in. You sold with people in your synagogue. You fellowshiped, you ate, and did different things with them. They were your family. Can you imagine getting kicked out of your synagogue and your parents can't even talk to you? Your parents wouldn't even speak to you. Your siblings wouldn't be able to speak to you. That's how serious and that's how much power these people had. But Jesus was not even offended by them. He didn't care what they said. He was not concerned with pleasing them. And I think we got to get to the place where we get more concerned with pleasing God than pleasing man. Because Jesus was concerned with pleasing his Father. He was not concerned about pleasing man. And that was the object of his teaching. He wanted to see people delivered. And that's how we should be. That's why he wasn't offended, because he knew, I have to teach the kingdom. I have to teach the things that are going to help set people free. So he taught with authority. He understood that he had the authority of God the Father. Matthew 17:5 tells us this, that God the Father said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear you him." If God the Father said, "Hear him," I think we need to listen to what God says. The God of the universe, the God that made the heaven and earth, said, "Whatever my Son is saying, listen to it." Why is that important? Because God Christ and God the Father were one. So what God the Father said, that's what Christ said. And what Jesus said, what his Father said. They were one.